The bullets and the punches and the riots have been flowing in only one direction for too long.
I've been trying to tell you guys this whole time how corrupt all of these things were, and here we are.
It is not our responsibility to fix something they spent years intentionally trying to destroy. Unity can only happen in a country when you have a people who agree on what the outcomes should be. Well, what's up, everybody? Happy Monday. How's everybody doing today? We're a minute late, guys.
Yeah, we started at 8:30.
It was like 8:31, 9:30 Eastern time. We were a minute late, and SK, I'm gonna put the blame on SK for this one. Not because she showed up 5 minutes early. SK came into the pre-show chit chat and dropped an absolute bomb on us about things that she's been discussing with Lisa, and that sent us down a rabbit hole. And we spent the last 15 minutes talking about transhumanism and like just all kinds of crazy stuff. And crazily enough, it actually lines up with Jeffrey Epstein, but we probably won't get to that topic today. We'll probably have to do that topic a little bit later. Nonetheless, we have got an absolute bombshell of a show today. Is anyone else getting a little bit sick and tired of Jeffrey Epstein and the drama that the Democrats are continuing to try to create? Is anyone getting tired of that?
Yes.
I am not. I actually think this is a fun topic. I think this topic is one of the best topics that we should be talking about, because every time these idiot Democrats try to bring up Jeffrey Epstein, they end up with it blowing back in their face. I made a comment in a video that I released earlier today that says, well, it looks like I wasn't the only one that tried to set my house on fire last week. I didn't set my house on fire. It was an accident. But the Democrats did it on purpose. They literally burned their entire house to the ground last week with this whole Jeffrey Epstein episode. And this is going to be a fun show. Hopefully.
I had a different analogy.
All right, let's hear it.
My analogy was they keep going back to this well, right? Because they don't really have anything else. The problem is the only thing at the bottom of the well are other Democrat bodies laying there.
That's right.
There's no Trump body down there. There's endless Democrat bodies. And we're going to talk about some of them today.
I mean, the timing is pretty fantastic if you think about it. Donald Trump, I believe, has played this absolutely perfectly. He got the Democrats in such a fever pitch. The 1630 chorus media propagandists out there have been talking about nothing but Jeffrey Epstein every waking moment, with every breath of their being, trying to get this to the point where the American people think Donald Trump did something wrong. And it's almost like Trump was just baiting them over and over and over and over again. And he just walloped them last week to the point that I don't know if they're going to be able to recover from it.
I don't think they are, because in their attempt to try to turn this around and villainize Trump, it seems as though they've just more implicated themselves.
That's right. I hear that.
Checkmate.
I hear that our good friend, Just Me Mad Marine, made another promo video for us. Should we play that?
You want me to bring it up?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's bring it up because it's awesome. Well, that music was pretty spectacular, and it's exactly what we've been watching the Democrats doing over the last week, is turning themselves into an absolute circus. A total circus.
There's other symbolism there too. SK, what was the other symbolism in that video?
The blue dress. I asked her to include a blue dress because I said, and don't forget about the painting of Clinton in the blue dress. So she put blue dresses on all the monkeys.
She put on all the monkeys because they are dancing. And that brings up a really interesting question. And I think the most important question that we need to ask through all of this conversation about Jeffrey Epstein is not, did Jeffrey Epstein work for the Democrats, but were the Democrats working for Jeffrey Epstein? I don't know, folks over in the comments, over on YouTube.
It appears that way.
Because the deeper we get into this stuff, the more connections it seems like Jeffrey Epstein had to high-ranking, very powerful Democrats, and the amount of people that were running to him and begging him for money. I can't help but ask the question: were the Democrats working for Jeffrey Epstein?
They were certainly doing some things to save him a bunch of money. tax breaks. I mean, a lot of they were working for Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, if you go through basically all of the emails that the Democrats didn't try to bring out on their own. I mean, remember they brought out 3 emails and they tried 9 with the 3 original that they brought out. They tried to pull a fast one over, and they did pull one over on Jasmine Crockett. I mean, big time. She didn't even realize that her own party were the ones who put that redaction on those. But what they completely left out is half of the Democrat Party was in emails talking to Epstein, trying to give him advice, trying to help him, improve his image just before he was rearrested. I mean, there's a lot that was in there, and none of it is what the Democrats wanted to be exposed. None of it.
So I think we need to frame this the right way. There is a time period that I think we need to draw a line in the sand on, and we need to focus on this massive backfire on the Democrats by looking at a very specific time period. So it was in 2007 and 2008 when Jeffrey Epstein was tried and convicted of all kinds of heinous crimes against young girls, originating out of Southern Florida. You guys all remember the details. We've talked about that story over and over again.
Correction, Patriot Dad. This is an important correction. He was not convicted. He had a plea agreement.
That's right.
Because that plea agreement is very, very, very vitally important to what happened after that case.
That's right. That's right. But the time frame is really important because he accepted a plea deal and acknowledged some form of responsibility by doing that, I'm assuming. I didn't go back and read the plea deal. SK, did you read the plea deal?
Yeah, it's in there. Well, I put the section in there about the not prosecuting the co-conspirators, including but not limited to. But also, he pled guilty to like 2 counts of, I think it was prostitution charge.
Yeah. So
soliciting prostitution of a minor.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
An underage girls, 2 counts is what he pled guilty to in the non-prosecution agreement. Right.
So we need to look at this from the pre-2007 plea deal and the post-2007 plea deal. Now, you can make the argument that people that were associated with Jeffrey Epstein in the early 2000s, maybe in the 90s, and as all the way back as the late 80s, should have had some idea of the type of stuff he was up to. You can make that argument if you want. I think it's a hard case to make because there's really no evidence that anybody knew anything except for one person. And he's the one who actually went and talked to the attorney who was representing some of the victims, Bradley Edwards, and we actually have a clip of that. But everything that happened with Jeffrey Epstein after he served time in jail, accepted a plea deal, is a very different circumstance. It is a circumstance of people who made a conscious decision that they were going to associate with the man. They were going to bring him into their circles. They were going to leverage him for his money and his knowledge, which is really important because there's only one thing that Jeffrey Epstein was really, really good at, and that's tax issues. Basically, he taught people how to launder money. That's what Jeffrey Epstein did. That's how he made his money, is he taught people how to launder their money. He brokered deals and he used young kids to sweeten the pot for those deals. That's how he made his money.
He also assisted with some 3-letter agency activities and allowed money to flow that way and connected money players for some, arms deals and stuff like that.
That's right. So I want to be very clear. Anything that happened post-conviction were people making conscious decisions that they wanted to associate with him. They chose to associate with him because they knew, everybody knew in those power circles, everybody knew what he spent time in jail for, what he was doing on the island, and they still decided to hang out with him and still decided to beg him for money and still decided to try to use his connections to increase their own influence and their own power. And that's what we found out last week. So the Democrats have been begging. All the propagandists have been screaming at the top of their lungs. And yes, a whole bunch of us here as well. Release the files, release the files, release the files. Well, guess what? The files have been released. 66,000 documents have been released just since James Comer took over the Oversight Committee and since Donald Trump has been in office. And what do we find in those documents? Well, we find a whole lot of Democrats doing a lot of really dumb things and engaging with somebody that they told us was one of the worst human beings on the planet, and yet they had no problem taking his money. They had no problem begging for it.
Some of the most high-profile Democrats, like Katherine Rumler, who, if anybody spent any time listening to Dan Bongino and his show before he took the position that he's in, that name Katherine Rumler would show up, I don't know, at least once a month on Bongino's show, because she was Obama's fixer. That was her job. She was White House counsel. And anytime there was a scandal in the Obama White House, Katherine Rumler is who they called. And Katherine Rumler showed up and she fixed and she made those scandals go away.
But wait a minute. Was she like an actual fixer, or was she like a Michael Cohen fixer who they said in testimony would break things before he fixed it?
She was an
I'm not
actual
sure.
fixer.
So she
Actual
was an
fixer.
act.
Yeah.
So she's like a legitimate fixer.
She was so good at it that they elevated her to the chief White House counsel role. Folks, understand, buried in those 23,000 emails that were just released was a litany of conversation between Jeffrey Epstein and Katherine Rumler, who was Barack Obama's direct White House attorney. And I have to go ahead, Nam. I have a question for you afterwards.
Well, I mean, we've got a video.
Let's do that.
About
Okay,
this.
let's play the video. Show the video.
Okay.
But I want to go back to what we heard in the room with Epstein-Wolf-Bannon and one other person, a woman. We can at this time exclusively reveal that the fourth party in that room, never before publicly identified, was former Obama White House counsel Katherine Rumler. Ms. Rumler is all over the emails that just hit yesterday, which show a very friendly relationship between her and Jeffrey Epstein. She reportedly even showed up to Epstein's 2019 sex trafficking arraignment. In Wolf's 2021 book, all right, now try to keep it straight, because we're going to tell you about a meeting that was from April 2019. Jeffrey Epstein allegedly killed himself in August of 2019, 1 month after he'd been charged with all these crimes. And then in 2021, Wolf wrote another book. In 2018, he had written Fast or Fury and Fire, whatever it was, Fire and Fury. And then in 2021, after the meeting that we're discussing with you right now, he wrote another book called Too Famous. And in that book, he revealed parts of this conversation I'm telling you about right now. But interestingly, he holds a few things back. He does not reveal, for example, this attorney's identity. In the audio we heard, she's referred to as White House counsel and Kathy, so it's pretty clear to us who it is. Now that we see her all over the email correspondence, even more so. We reached out to Ms. Rumler on our reporting that she was in this meeting with Epstein, and she declined to comment. The tenor of the conversation is friendly and upbeat. It sounds like friends having a good time, laughing and joking as they try to come up with ways to spin a known sex abuser back into the good graces of the public. Now, just it's interesting. Keep in mind, this is after he knows at this point about the Julie K. Brown reporting, and he knows additional legal charges could come his way. That's what's interesting about the timing of this tape that we heard. All right, so it's.
Well, that's weird. Hold on a second. Folks, if you've been trying to watch this over on X, for some reason it doesn't look like the live stream started. I had to just restart it. I think we're good over there on X. But nonetheless, don't worry. You missed the first 15 minutes. We'll post the YouTube version of it later for you guys so that you can catch it. I apologize. I'm not really sure why, but it looks like it didn't go live. But I have a question for you, Nam, and for you, SK. So we know that Jeffrey Epstein had a penchant for having a wing woman around him. Ghislaine Maxwell served that role for a very long time, right? She was his quote unquote girlfriend. And then she went and got herself married after he went to jail. She kind of separated herself from him and then went and tried to live her own separate life. And now as I'm reading through these emails and I'm watching the interactions between Jeffrey Epstein and Barack Obama's former chief White House counsel, his personal attorney, it certainly looks a lot to me like there was a very friendly, very cozy, very symbiotic relationship there between Rumler and Epstein. Was Rumler Epstein's new girlfriend?
I don't know. I know that there were a number of trips. There were a number of meetings, lunches, dinners, and I believe she even had scheduled trips to travel with him. But Katherine Rumler, I believe, has come out since Epstein was arrested in 2019 and basically claimed, I don't have the statement in front of me, but basically claimed, being friendly with Jeffrey Epstein was, a big mistake on her part. And, he's a horrible human being and all of those things, which is fascinating because what Megyn Kelly was just talking about, and it's probably my fault. I probably should have set that video up a little bit better. What last week Megyn Kelly did, I think, about a 25-minute segment on this, and it was focused on Michael Wolff, who Michael Wolff did a couple of books on Epstein, and Michael Wolff and Epstein were working together to try to take Trump down in 2016 and in 2020. He wrote 2 books on the matter. Michael Wolff claims that he has over 100 hours of video interview with Jeffrey Epstein, though he only released about an hour and 40 minutes of that 100 hours. And there are emails in this tranche of emails that were dumped with Michael Wolff, and Michael Wolff was giving him advice on how to sort of revitalize his image and how to do these things. He also called on Epstein in 2016. I believe it was on October 28th or 29th of 2016, which is a week before the election, saying, hey, you might have an opportunity to finally take Trump out, take him down. And then he tried to do the same thing again in 2020. If Michael Wolff has almost over 100 hours of recorded interview and he only released an hour and 40 minutes of it, where's the smoking gun? So that's the setup of what Megyn Kelly was referring to, because she and her team had actually already seen a somewhat larger portion of that 100 hours of video, and she was retelling a meeting that happened between Jeffrey Epstein, Michael Wolff, Katherine Rumler, and Steve Bannon, and it was in April of 2019. So just a few months before he's arrested by the Trump DOJ, and basically he gets indicted and he's getting ready to stand trial. A few months before that, they had a meeting that was specifically tailored to how do you sort of clean up Epstein's image so that he could then come back out into the public, because there's a ton of Democrats that were using him and relying on him. And we're going to talk about all this, right? A ton of money being donated to campaigns, even the DNC, though they did reject it because he didn't pass the vetting in 2018. But they were actively trying to revitalize his image so he could come back out in the public in 2019.
Of course they were.
That's what Megyn's that story she's telling about.
Because they're all friends with him. More importantly, probably because he owns all of them, because he has dirt on them, and he has a whole lot of money and a whole lot of connections, which we're going to talk about more as we go through this. So where do you want to go from here, Nam? There's a whole lot of stuff to talk about on this outline. We talked about Katherine Rumler. I think we are owed an explanation about the depth of the relationship, America. I think you need to demand that Katherine Rumler explain exactly why her relationship seemed to be as cozy as it was with Jeffrey Epstein. And for someone to say it was a mistake, I'm sorry. This was like 5 years, at least 5 years of a relationship between the two. Ongoing conversations, joking, having fun, trips, scheduled plane rides, invites out to the island. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern. That's a friendship. This is the person who had the ear of Barack Obama. And she's not the only one. There's a whole lot of them that are deeply connected to Jeffrey Epstein. And it just kind of makes you wonder, at what point, maybe SK, you know the answer to this, at what point did they make a decision that Jeffrey Epstein was going to be the thing they tried to beat Donald Trump over the head with? And why on earth would they do that, knowing they're so deeply connected to it all?
I think that they've just gotten away for so long with the narrative warfare and straight up lying to people and then believing everything that they say, that they've made Donald Trump into this big bad guy, and the people that listen to them will just believe what they say about Donald Trump because in their mind he's terrible and evil, and they just believe all of it.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, they're relying on the weaponized ignorance that they know they're going to get from their base, right? It doesn't matter how completely based in garbage most of this stuff is. It doesn't matter. But because President Trump did not immediately release, according to them, all the Epstein files, the problem that they're going to have is, one, nobody, they won't even read them when they're released. We know that. And then two, why didn't the AutoPen release them? I think we know why the AutoPen didn't release them, because he knew least the Biden DOJ knew, is that really what's in these files is a bunch of Democrats are very, very cozy with him, well after they knew they shouldn't have been, like very much so.
Right. And I just feel like, I don't know. I think that it's so frustrating to me. I went and decided I was going to debate a little bit over the weekend. And every single Democrat that comes up and wants to debate wants to talk about Epstein, and they have the exact same propaganda talking points, every single one of them in the same order. And they completely ignore the fact that we're the ones that have cared about this. We're the ones that have read these documents. We're the ones that have been following this since, the early 2000s. We're the ones that know about this. They didn't start caring about this until 5 minutes ago. And the Democrats damn sure never pushed for anything to be released until everything happened with the Trump administration and Pam Bondi, saying the whole binder incident. Not a single Democrat said anything. And the Democrats knew the second that they started saying, well, look, they didn't release anything. There were some new things that were released in that binder, but it was mostly all old information. And by them saying, remember, it said part 1. Like this again, I feel like this is a chess move because it said part 1. And the Democrats started pushing for it to be released and pushing for it to be released and trying to make it the topic front and center constantly. And just to distract away from all of their failures. And now they are absolutely hanging themselves with the rope he's given them. And I think I saw Tuesday, they're going to go ahead and release everything that can be released. And the Democrats knew that most everything that could be released had already been released because of the agreements that were made back in the early 2000s, because of documents that were signed, because of the victim compensation program, because of victims and, confidentiality agreements, all of those things. The Democrats knew basically everything that could have been released had already been released. But what still can be released and hasn't been released is all going to be released on Tuesday. And I guarantee you the Democrats are terrified.
Look, this group of people, and we didn't have the podcast at the time, but this group of people, through our content, through our debates, through conversations we were having on our social media platforms, we warned them months ago. If you guys say you really want these things released, they're going to be released, and it's not going to end well for you. Because we knew, because I personally read every single document that was part of the lawsuits that were released back in 2023, 2024.
Last summer, we were reading all of the stuff from Florida grand jury.
That's right. The Florida grand juries. I read every single one of them, over 6,000 documents, every one of them. And I went through and I pulled out every single instance of Donald Trump's name. I made several videos about it. I talked about it. I showed everybody each and every instance of where his name was mentioned in those lawsuits. And every single one of them, it was the same thing. It was a victim saying, yep, never met him, never saw him. If I did see him, he was a perfect gentleman. He had no role in any of the things that were happening. And if he had done anything, then those victims would have talked about it in that grand jury, in those depositions. They would have had to. And for every one of them to say the exact same thing, I think we all knew where this was going. And as soon as they started playing the rope-a-dope, Lucy with the football with the Democrats, I knew this is what was going to happen. This was a setup for them. They got themselves set up to the point that they're getting ready to get steamrolled over this issue in ways that they can't even imagine.
They already have, but the mainstream media won't cover it, and that's what pisses me off. And
we don't need the mainstream media to cover it anymore. And I'm going to show you. I'm going to give you a perfect example of how we do this. Give me just a second. Nam, you were going to say something. I want to pull something up that's not queued, so give me a second to do this.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was going to say, I mean, everybody that wants you to believe that President Trump is in this for nefarious reasons has had 10 years for anybody to come forward, literally anybody. I mean, it could have been Doug Schoen. It could have been Epstein's attorneys. It could have been Dershowitz. It could have been Michael Cohen. It could have been any of these people. It could have been any of those nearly dozen or 24 women that did the press conference on the Capitol steps earlier this summer. It could have been any of them. Virginia Giuffre, all of them could have said, they could have pointed a finger at President Trump, and they would have been believed because contemporaneously, they had no reason not to believe him or not to believe them. I mean,
look, Sorry, go ahead. Finish.
No, that's it. It's so asinine. Everything that they have tried to throw at President Trump, even Epstein is all over these emails trying to help people build a case to take Trump out, whether it's in Crossfire Hurricane, whether it's, how horrible of a person he is. He's a bad businessman. All of the stuff that is in these emails, not one single time Epstein could have said, hey, by the way, he's over there banging minor girls. But he never did. He never did. Ghislaine Maxwell never did. None of his attorneys ever did. None of the actual so-called victims ever did. Literally none of them did.
Because that's the point at which you are sued into the ground and you have nothing left. And they know that.
Right.
They know they can't make that claim without losing everything they have. So I just want to show the audience real quick. SK, this is why nobody trusts the media anymore. So the media doesn't need to come out and try to clean this mess up. Although they did a little bit, and we can show maybe the Crockett interview where she just got hammered by the interviewer. But I want to show the audience what the media tries to do and why it doesn't work. So this is a headline that came out from Radar Online just a few days ago. It says, Epstein victim bombshell. Ghislaine introduced me to Trump with a clear message of me being with him in the same way that she had trafficked me. Now, when you read that headline, immediately your thought is like, oh my gosh, we're getting ready to see another victim tell a story potentially, or they're lining this person up as somebody who's got a story that they're going to tell. Now, I want to show you why nobody cares what the media says anymore. Because when you get into the body of that article, here's what they had to write. When asked how Trump responded to that, she stated the following: I can only speak for myself, and this is in no way to negate any other experience that anyone else might have had with him. But at no time did President Trump behave with any impropriety with me. So they write a headline insinuating that this young lady was trafficked to Donald Trump, but then they're forced to write the truth in the article because they know Donald Trump will sue them for everything they have. This is why nobody trusts them anymore, because they have people like us, SK,
That should have been the headline.
That should have been the headline. Actually, this story never should have been written in the first place because it's not a story. It's not a story.
No, it is a story. Because it is just one more in a long line of supposed headline grabbing articles that are trying to find a victim that actually said, I'm not a victim. That is the story.
Yeah.
Sorry,
all
that's
of the victims,
story.
all of the victims of Epstein in their depositions and interviews said Donald Trump never did anything with them. And the interviewers, almost at some points in time, it's like the interviewers are pushing them to blame Donald Trump for something that he did not do. And it's almost like sometimes the victims are arguing with them. Like, no, Donald Trump was not there. Donald Trump was never there when anything inappropriate took place. Donald Trump never touched me. I mean, they're having to argue with them.
So again,
do you mean these victims? I want to play the PSA unless you got.
Yeah, play it.
Yeah, because these are the victims we're referring to, right, SK? These women right here.
I suffered so much pain.
So much pain.
So much pain.
I suffered so much pain. I was 14 years old.
I was 16 years old.
I was 16.
17.
14 years old.
This is me.
This was me.
This is me.
When I met Jeffrey Epstein.
This is me when I met Jeffrey Epstein.
There are about 1,000 of us.
It's time to bring the secrets out of the shadows. It's time to shine a light into the darkness.
So those are the women that was stood on the Capitol steps this summer, and they did a press conference, and then they were interviewed, I believe, the night before by CBS, if I'm not mistaken, maybe ABC, and they were asked, those women were all asked if President Trump was involved, and they all said no. All of them did. Do you have any idea how earth-shattering it would have been if one of them was like, yeah, he was. But none of them did.
Because
None
they
of them
couldn't. Because they couldn't. Again, remember, folks, we've drawn a line in the sand, and we're talking about two different time periods. We're talking about the deal that was made back in 2007, 2008, and the post deal that was made 2007, 2008. All of these women were victims prior to that deal, and every single one of them said the same thing. Donald Trump had no role in it because they had to tell the truth. They can't lie about it. And yet we still have very powerful Democrats, and I kind of want to advance the ball forward as we go through here. Very powerful Democrats who, after Jeffrey Epstein accepted a plea deal, spent time in jail, and was a known P3DO. Am I allowed to say that? Can I say pedophile on YouTube? I don't know. A known one of those people, they still chose to associate with him. Did you guys see that even Hakeem Jeffries was being solicited to Jeffrey Epstein? Did you guys see that as part of this email drop? Hakeem Jeffries, when he was a brand new freshman congressman, was being presented to Jeffrey Epstein, almost like saying, here is our next Barack Obama. This guy has a bright future. He's going to be in leadership of the Democrat Party. And one of the first people they took him to was Jeffrey Epstein.
Yep.
One of the very first people.
He wasn't the only one.
I think I put it in the Dropbox, the one that talks about
It's in here. I'll find it. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but we can find it real quick. If you got in the comments, do you guys want to see that, or have you already seen it? I'll see if I can find it real quick while we're doing this. Bear with me here a moment.
It says Jeffries. Just search the Dropbox for Jeffries.
Jeffries pitch to Epstein. There it is. Look at that. That's some naming right there. I don't know if you can see it very well, but nonetheless, this is an email, a promotional email from a fundraiser who is sending it directly to the Epstein organization and basically begging him to donate, to be introduced to be pulled into the circle so Hakeem Jeffries can be associated with Jeffrey Epstein. And this was in 2013.
Brooklyn's Barack. He is a staunch supporter of President Obama.
I mean, check that out, folks.
Oh, look, they're talking about the fundraisers for the DCCC. Oh, who else got money from Epstein for the DCCC? Because they had a $250,000 per person in the DCCC that they had to raise, and they gave $30,000, and then they said no, we can't. The DCC took it and said no, we can't take this.
Wait, no, it's this one.
What's this?
Well, this is, I mean, Stacy Plaskett, because there's all kinds of goodies about Stacy Plaskett in here. So do you want to kind of tell us what's going on here in this court docket, in this case?
Sure. Yeah, there was a lawsuit that was filed in New York against the government of the U.S. Virgin Islands and I think the United States government and Stacy Plaskett herself. And it ended up that they said that there wasn't jurisdiction for any of the defendants other than Stacy Plaskett. So the plaintiffs ended up dropping, and the plaintiffs were victims. They ended up dropping the case against everyone because they said that Stacy Plaskett on her own couldn't pay. It wasn't worth the money to go forward because they weren't going to get anything out of it. But yeah, there's $300 million in tax helping Epstein. Go ahead.
So let's kind of start at the beginning of Stacy Plaskett because this isn't the first time. So Stacy Plaskett's name shows up quite a bit in the latest dump.
Well, who's Stacy Plaskett? I think first of all, we need to define who Stacy Plaskett is, because I don't know if a lot of people know.
Plaskett is the congresswoman from the U.S. Virgin Islands. I think is she a non-voting member? Is that how that works in the Virgin Islands?
Non-voting member, right?
And Stacy Plaskett, I mean, as you all probably know, Epstein Island is actually part of the Virgin Islands, and Epstein was one of the original financiers of her campaigns. And continued to be all the way up into 2018, if I'm not mistaken, SK? 2018?
Yeah, he was arrested in 2019.
Yeah. So here we have an email that came out, and this is from 2014. And this is from a Cecile de Jong. Now, this, by the way, is the first lady of the governor of the Virgin Islands, or mayor, what I think it's probably the governor of the Virgin Islands. And Cecile is basically begging Jeffrey Epstein to help fund the campaign of Stacy Plaskett to get her elected to Congress, because Sean Malone, who's the current Senate president, is running against her in the Democrat primary in August. Sean is the one who came after you in the Senate hearing last week, you being Jeffrey Epstein. He is nasty and needs to be defeated, and we would have a friend in Stacy. Since this is a federal election, only personal contributions up to $2,600 per person can be given. She needs to raise $75,000 between now and August. Do you think any of your friends could give to her campaign? So that's the first lady of the U.S. Virgin Islands back in 2013, who, by the way, in that exact same case that SK was just describing, was a named defendant because she stayed in one of Epstein's apartments in New York for a month in 2017, nearly a decade after Epstein completed his prison sentence for soliciting minors for prostitution, in order to advise and assist him in securing the U.S. Virgin Islands cooperation as a safe harbor for his sex trafficking ring.
So wait,
Did I just hear that correctly?
So wait,
Yep, that's the complaint. That's from the complaint.
so wait, so just a reminder, is this before he spent time in jail for being a P3DO, or is this after he spent
It's
time
a
in
decade
jail?
after.
This is after. This is after they
after.
knew everything he'd been doing.
After.
This
That's right.
Plaskett chick is all over the place. She's all over the place before she was even in Congress. When she was in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and her position in the U.S. Virgin Islands, she was something to do with commerce.
She was on, I think she was the chief counsel for the Economic Development Council for the U.S. Virgin Islands. And her defendant, Stacy Plaskett, was at all relevant times an attorney with Epstein's longtime law firm, Keller, Halls, Ferguson, whatever, the attorney for the U.S. Virgin Islands Economic Development Council when it approved $300 million in tax breaks for Epstein's companies. And she was also a delegate in the U.S. House of Representatives for the at-large district. So this may explain why and how Stacy Plaskett had Jeffrey Epstein's phone number so that she could be texting him to get questions during a freaking congressional hearing.
Oh,
Do
yeah.
we have that video?
We have that
We
video.
do. I put it in there.
Well, let me set this up. Nom, you find the video real quick. It's in there.
Do you know what it's
we need to
called?
set this up.
Just search for Plaskett. It should come up. I labeled it in the outline, but I don't have the outline pulled up because I don't look at the outline. But I made the outline this time.
So Stacy Plaskett, just for folks who aren't terribly familiar with her, she is, I think she is right now the ranking member on the House Oversight Committee. If I understand that correctly. I could be wrong, but I believe that she is the #1 Democrat on the House Oversight Committee, which is the committee that is responsible for reviewing all of these communications and sending them out. I wonder what Stacy Plaskett's role was in the 3 doctored emails that the Democrat side of the House Oversight Committee decided to release right before the 23,000 documents were ultimately released. So Stacy Plaskett, who, by the way, literally owes her entire political career to Jeffrey Epstein, worked as a member of his law firm, is now the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. I believe. I could be wrong about that. It could be the Judiciary Committee. I'm not sure which one, but she's a ranking member of some committee. She's a very important Democrat in Washington, D.C. And she was an impeachment manager for the Democrats during Donald Trump's second impeachment trial.
Yes.
This woman has had a key role in every aspect of trying to destroy Donald Trump, and she is deeply connected to Jeffrey Epstein.
Dude, she's on the Intel committee, and she's also on the tax committee. I think I sent it, but it might have been, I don't think I put it in the Dropbox.
I got it. For some reason, it wasn't letting me upload it. I got it.
All right,
Okay.
so let's set this up.
Too.
I want to set this up. Don't start it yet. All right, folks. So understand what you're gonna see. So through these emails that were released, we learned that during the testimony of Michael Cohen, when he was brought up to Capitol Hill and was forced to answer questions and was, lying through most of it, was called out for potential perjury in some of that testimony, Stacy Plaskett was actually text messaging with Jeffrey Epstein during the hearing so that she could frame the questions that she was getting ready to ask. And the video that you're getting ready to watch, some enterprising journalist over on X took the testimony and they took the script that was released and they lined them up. And you can actually watch the conversation that was happening in text message in real time as she was sitting on the dais getting ready to ask questions. This is phenomenal. Jeffrey Epstein was literally coaching her on how to question Michael Cohen in this testimony.
That's from the House Oversight Committee memorandum that they released.
Yeah. All right. Pull it up. People need to see this. We need to watch it.
Obama was president of the United States. And while we were once driving through a struggling neighborhood in Chicago, he commented that only black people could live that way. Attorney-client privilege, yes, I will turn it over.
You, as my friend Mr. Meadows pointed out, misled this committee even today in a written submission that contradicted your testimony. You have suggested you are going to review that. Are you going to review it in our next break to correct the record, yes or no?
Yes.
Question, you helped out the president's campaign or were involved in the campaign as a representative, as a spokesman, even in your words today. It was your idea for the campaign dating back to 2011. Is that accurate, yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Weisenberg and other individuals, Ms. Rona. Who are those individuals? Are they with the Trump organization?
They are.
Are there other people that we should be meeting with?
So Alan Weisselberg is the chief financial officer.
Uh-huh. You got to quickly give us as many names as you can so we can get to them.
Yes, ma'am.
Is Ms. Rona, what is Ms. Rona's position?
Rona Graff is Mr. Trump's executive assistant.
And would she be able to corroborate many of the statements that you've made here?
Yes, her office is directly next to his, and she's involved in a lot that went on.
Good work. Good job, Congresswoman Stacy Plaskett.
Unbelievable. Now, I think one of the challenges with that clip is that the closed caption was running over top of the text messages. But if you can go find that out on X, and I posted it and I can post it again for everybody, you can actually watch them in real time having a conversation about the questions that she was getting ready to ask. It was astonishing. Sorry,
Yes.
Go ahead, SK.
No, I was just going to say that's the hearing that Michael Cohen got charged with lying to Congress over for perjury.
Right. So, I mean, that just sort of emphasizes the point that I've been, especially with Cohen, Jeffrey Epstein had every opportunity to give Stacy Plaskett the silver bullet, to give her everything to ask Michael Cohen, and Michael Cohen had every opportunity to say, hey, by the way, I mean, this guy Trump, you don't know what he's been doing with these young girls. But they couldn't do it. Instead, they're pushing bullshit narratives. It's all endless bullcrap hoax narratives when they could have fried Trump 10 years ago.
Well, they didn't have anything to fry him with.
Right.
That's the problem. There was nothing to fry him with. So instead, they use this cloud of suspicion and propaganda to try to muddy the waters. And the problem is it doesn't work anymore. Look, I think the American people baked in the fact that the media is lying, the propagandists are lying about this stuff. And at this point, I'm just going to try to help you guys out, Democrats. This is not going to work for you if you continue down this road. And Donald Trump, I think, very smartly just released a Truth Social post, and maybe we'll get to it a little bit later, where he just said, all right, let's do it. Let's release it all. It's time to get it out there for everybody to see. Perfectly timed for the kickoff of the midterms. But we've got a lot more. There's a lot more to talk about.
I mean, I think Trump's actually playing it perfectly because he's allowing them to cook themselves. They're being cooked in real time. I mean, we got a show, and they're being cooked by their own friendly media outlets right now. Because even like CNN, now I know they had an ownership change, and they're trying to do something that resembles fair reporting. But CNN cooked this woman like. Here, let's just.
Second, 2011. Republicans are saying that victim is Virginia Giuffre. As you know, she died by suicide. She's been very outspoken victim of Jeffrey Epstein. Here's the email right here on your screen. She wrote a book, as you know, and she did not accuse him of any wrongdoing. What do you make of that? And can you confirm that?
Yeah, I don't know
obviously it's redacted who the victim is, so I won't necessarily take the Republicans' word on who it is that's redacted. And I don't know why they would necessarily redact someone's name who is deceased at this point.
The Democrats did that, though. The Democrats redacted.
No. I understand,
Okay,
but I'm
yeah.
just saying, like, our biggest concern is to actually make sure that we are protecting victims. And obviously, she wrote a book. She told her truth.
Do you guys want to see why they redacted her name?
Yikes.
You guys want to see the real reason why they redacted her name?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you remember any of the videos I've done about this, Virginia Giuffre was one of the main people that were interviewed during those depositions for those lawsuits in the grand juries. As a matter of fact, I think most of the mentions of Trump's name came from her. And every one of those instances, she said he did nothing wrong. But more importantly, she's actually talked about Donald Trump quite often on her X account before she passed away. Quite often. Here's one, for example. They redacted her name because they didn't want you to be able to go out and find things like this. Here's a tweet that she sent out back in October of 2024, where she says, "Hey, President Trump, I say let the list be released and watch the cockroaches scatter out of the U.S. and find the nearest place where having sex with 11-year-olds is punishable by death. Your ex-employee and biggest fan." I know who's on the Epstein client list. This is Virginia Giuffre.
That's 9 October 2024.
Who referred to herself as Trump's biggest fan.
And make sure you pull up that tweet where she said, "I'm not thinking of self-unaliving." So
Don't think I have that one, but I do have this one. I have another
I think
one.
it was April, and I think it was August when she.
I have this one. Here's another one. Here's a tweet from her. I don't know if I have the date. I think I cut it off, but it says, "I'm Virginia Roberts. I know Epstein client list. I met Trump when I worked at Mar-a-Lago. Hopefully our new president again." Yeah. And then she goes on and says, much to be tight-lipped about on the list, but also wary who I tell. Only someone of your candor who knows what to do with this information could help. What are your thoughts and plans about setting things right in the Billionaire Playboy Club? Please DM for more. Thank you. But did you notice this where it says, I worked at Mar-a-Lago. Hopefully our next president. That's Virginia Giuffre. That's the woman whose name the Democrats decided to redact because they didn't want you to see that.
She's the one that worked folding towels in the locker room, and her dad worked maintaining the golf course at Mar-a-Lago, and she was recruited from Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I don't know if this one has any details in it. They didn't want you to see this either. Virginia Giuffre, happy to clarify, I was never trafficked to Trump, nor was anyone that I know. That's Virginia Giuffre, who, by the way, said quite clearly that she was not suicidal before she died.
Of a mysterious overdose of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
That is why they redacted her name, because they didn't want you to see that the person that they were trying to frame Donald Trump for had very clearly, as early as October of last year, said that Donald Trump was her favorite person.
You know who we should ask about this? We should ask Vince Foster.
Ooh. We should, but since we can't ask Vince Foster.
I also really like my life and would never hurt myself just for
But
the
since we
record.
can't
You're getting
ask
into
Vince
Arkansas
Foster.
here, SK. You're getting into Arkansas territory now.
We can ask this guy about this.
Thing that I can say about President Trump is that he is the only person who, in 2009, when I served a lot of subpoenas on a lot of people, or at least gave notice to some pretty connected people that I wanted to talk to them, he is the only person who picked up the phone and said, let's just talk. I'll give you as much time as you want. I'll tell you what you need to know, and was very helpful in the information that he gave, and gave no indication whatsoever that he was involved in anything untoward whatsoever, but had good information that checked out and that helped us, and that we didn't have to take a deposition of him.
And that was in 2009?
That was in 2009. So,
do you know if there's any truth to James Patterson's claims that Trump kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago?
I've definitely heard that.
Yeah.
I definitely.
Okay. So there were 2 additional emails that came out. One of them was obviously the Virginia Giuffre, the dog who won't bark, saying, and then also the other email where Epstein's basically saying, yeah, of course Trump knew what was going on with the girls. He asked Ghislaine to stop. That's what he's referring to at the end of that. He's like, hey, stop trying to recruit the girls out of my spa from my club and doing whatever the hell you're doing with them. And you know what? Since you're not going to, I'm just going to go ahead and turn state's witness.
That's right. And I want to go back to
what he did.
And I want to go back to the other email. I don't know if we have a copy of it. If we don't, that's okay. The dog that didn't bark email, one of the 3 that they tried to fraudulently release. And everybody on the left was just running wild saying, oh, Donald Trump, he knows something. He's the dog that didn't bark was someone fessing up that Donald Trump was involved. Do you understand what the dog that don't bark means? It means he's the one who hasn't actually said anything to take them all down yet. Maybe it's because he was actually saying things behind closed doors to take them all down, but he was saying it to the wrong people. He was saying it to people that were in Obama's Justice Department, were in the holdovers to Obama's Justice Department, who made these files disappear. There's no doubt in my mind that anything that was obtained on Jeffrey Epstein prior to his arrest was sanitized, and it was completely removed to the point where we're probably never going to see those tapes. We're never going to see those conversations because Jim Comey's daughter was the one who's responsible for prosecuting him.
Well,
as a matter of fact, I think
I've got it from the last episode. Hold on a second.
I think Ghislaine Maxwell isn't she even basing one of her habeas, the habeas claim on the fact that she was prosecuted illegally because of the way that James Comey's daughter handled it?
She was her appeal to the Supreme Court was based on the non-prosecution agreement. I put a screenshot of that in there. I highlighted the part where it talks about the included or not included. The Supreme Court didn't take that up. But this is my question, because Jamie Raskin had a whistleblower come to him with emails that he then released. Keep in mind, Jamie Raskin is an attorney. He's also a law professor, and he's a ranking member of the Oversight Committee. He knows the laws. This whistleblower got into the internal system of the Bureau, worked at the Bureau of Prisons, got into the internal system, and gave Jamie Raskin private communications between Maxwell and her attorneys and her family, close family and friends. And Jamie Raskin released that to the public.
That's not a whistleblower. That's a leaker.
Right. Attorney-client privileged information was leaked by a ranking member of the Oversight Committee and an attorney and a law professor. He knew exactly what he was doing. Her rights were violated. And he said out loud that those emails contained information that they had been petitioning and filled out applications and applied for commutations and pardons for Maxwell from Trump. Remember when the left was going around saying, why is Trump going to pardon Maxwell? Well, her attorney released a statement saying, no, this is what happened. And that person was fired from Bureau of Prisons. Nobody has made any application to the Trump administration for commutation or pardons. And the reason why is you have to finish all of your appeals process. All litigation has to be done before you can do so. And on top of that, they said, we're filing a habeas petition because of the fact that new evidence, with all this stuff being released, new evidence has come to light that was not available when she was going to trial. Did Jamie Raskin leak those emails knowing that she was filing a habeas and with new evidence? And he did this in order to maybe help her get out of jail?
Wait, are you suggesting that maybe that whole whistleblower scam was just a trick for a Democrat to try to help someone close to Jeffrey Epstein's orbit? Is that what you're maybe positing here?
I'm wondering if maybe, I mean, if you're a lawyer and you're a law professor and you know that giving this information to the public is going to cause a problem with the habeas that you know is going to be coming because you've got the attorney-client communications, if you're trying to get somebody off to keep them from talking and get them out of jail, what better way than screwing it all up by releasing all of this information to the public and violating the rights of the prisoner?
Yeah, I'm convinced. I'm absolutely convinced that's what Jamie Raskin was doing. I can't prove it yet, but we will probably try to figure that out at some point. But it is not at all surprising to me to hear that Jamie Raskin was the recipient of leaked attorney-client privileged emails that were stolen from the Bureau of Prisons server right before a habeas petition is filed. I'm not at all surprised by that. Are you? Anyone in the comments? Are you guys surprised to hear that Jamie Raskin was involved in that type of a scandal? I'm not. Makes perfect sense to me. Makes
And
perfect sense.
before we end, I also think one of the things that every single Democrat on TikTok that wanted to debate wanted to talk about was the email that is between Jeffrey Epstein and Mark Epstein, where they're joking with each other. And Mark makes the reply to ask Putin if he has the picture of Trump blowing Bubba.
Well, that opens a whole nother can of worms because there were emails included in there, and we didn't add it to our outline, but there were emails included in that tranche that was just released that talked about Jeffrey Epstein and his relationships and conversations with Russians who were involved in Crossfire Hurricane and the Grand Russian Collusion Conspiracy.
Yes. And also all the stuff
this,
with
Mel?
the hush money.
What's this?
This is the blowing bubbles email. SK, I know you've got a statement from Mark Epstein, though. I got to find it. You have a
Yeah, I
statement
put
that
it.
Mark
I put
Epstein-
it in there. Just search Mark Epstein in the Dropbox. It should come right
Yeah,
up.
this is kind of important.
So while
Yeah.
he's doing that, folks, I want to kind of frame something for everybody because there was a couple of themes that came out of those 23,000 emails. The first theme, and you got to wrap your heads around this, is that very high power for Democrats were deeply and personally involved with Jeffrey Epstein. Some of them owed their entire political career to him after they already knew who he was and what he was doing. But the other thing that comes through here more clearly than ever is the fact that Jeffrey Epstein deeply hated Donald Trump for a reason. And that reason,
he had several reasons to hate him, actually.
well, I believe the reason why that hatred persisted to the level that it was at was because he knew that Donald Trump had the goods on him and was talking to the FBI or was talking to somebody.
I think so too. Do you want me to read this to you, or did you find it, or do you want me to? Oh, okay.
Someone's gonna have to read this so people can see it or can hear it.
Yeah, so this is in response to the blowing bubbles email. Mark Epstein, which is Jeffrey Epstein's brother, actually released a statement back on November 15th. It said, in light of recent speculation surrounding the release of internal emails related to Jeffrey Epstein case, Mark Epstein issues the following statement. Yada, yada, yada. Recently, emails from 2018 between my brother and me were made public. They were simply part of a humorous private exchange between two brothers and were never meant for public release or to be interpreted as serious remarks. For the avoidance of doubt, the reference to Bubba in this correspondence is not in any way a reference to former President Bill Clinton. Any attempt to conflate that reference with President... Yeah.
Liar. Sorry, go ahead.
Any attempt to conflate that reference with President Clinton or to read sweeping implications into them misrepresents both the purpose and the tone of the original correspondence. I want to be absolutely clear on this point so that the public record is not distorted and so that speculation does not unfairly implicate people who are not actually being referenced in those communications.
I don't believe him.
Well, hold on though, because the email communications is the two of them joking. They're clearly joking, and they're talking about Russia. Because remember, Epstein was all up in the middle of the hush money stuff, the sealed dossier stuff. He's in the middle of everything. And you have to remember this time period. The email is from 2018. And remember the sealed dossier coming out. And you remember how long the Democrats talked about the sealed dossier and the golden showers and all of that stuff? That's what they're joking about.
Yep. So this
Folks,
is
do you
March
understand?
2018. Yep.
Do you understand? We're wrapping up. Do you guys understand the gravity of what was discovered last week? I just want to frame this right. You have to walk away with this knowledge, with this understanding. The Democrats ran the longest government shutdown in American history, inflicted massive amounts of pain and suffering on the American people. People were going without food stamps. It was bad. It was really bad. You guys all know. You guys remember the shows that we did on this. It was
going to be worse because Chuck U. Schumer was actually begging Democrat governors to come out in support of keeping the shutdown going through Thanksgiving so that nobody could travel. I mean, he wanted it to keep going. It was worse.
Well, and you had people like Pencil Neck Schiff, who was being interviewed, talking about how he was fighting vigorously behind closed doors to keep the government shut down. These people wanted to inflict the mass amount of pain they could on the American people. And when a few Democrats who are very vulnerable in the Senate races in 2026 realized that they were losing this fight, they folded. And their response was, we got to go back to the Epstein well, because that's the only thing that they felt like they were getting some traction on. And Donald Trump played them like a fiddle and said, okay, now's the time to actually show the people what's in these files. And what did we find? We found Obama's chief White House counsel, who has a multi-year, very cozy, very suspicious relationship with a known P3DO. Not just a couple of emails, but what looked to me like it was almost a romantic type of tone to their conversations. Question for her: were you his latest girlfriend? That's a question that I think we need answered. And we have Stacy Plaskett, who owns her entire career, political career as a quote unquote congresswoman from the Virgin Islands, a non-voting seat, owes her entire career to a known P3DO, who she knew was a P3DO at the time that her team was soliciting him to fund her campaign. And now we have records and timestamps of text messages that show exactly how close she was texting him. She was literally having a text conversation with him sitting on the dais while she was questioning Michael Cohen, who was there specifically to lie about Donald Trump. We have Jamie Raskin, another very powerful Democrat, who now we know somehow got his hands on leaked emails that were stolen from the Bureau of Prison servers that were protected by client attorney privilege, and that showed that Ghislaine Maxwell did not at any point try to get any type of clemency or a pardon from Donald Trump. And it was released right before her habeas corpus petition. And that's not all. We have emails in that tranche that show that Jeffrey Epstein was communicating with Russians at the same time Donald Trump was being accused of communicating and conspiring with Russians. It seems as though he was deeply involved in every aspect of the effort to take Donald Trump down from the minute that Trump came down that escalator. So I ask the question again. Were the Democrats working for Jeffrey Epstein?
Hold on, you forgot Dollar Store Obama.
Oh,
also.
I forgot about Dollar
The
Store
House
Obama.
Minority Leader, the next Nancy Pelosi.
The guy that they think is going to be the next Speaker of the House. Yeah, they went. One of the first people they went to was Jeffrey Epstein and said, "Can you help us? Can you raise money for him?"
But listen, guys, if you're Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump has told everything that he knows about you and given up all of your secrets to the authorities, I mean, you're going to make your life's mission doing everything you can to take him down, right?
Especially since the people who actually were in the position to put him in prison for the rest of his life in that case in South Florida didn't put him in prison. And then, as it certainly appears, whatever evidence would have actually put him in prison for the rest of his life seems to be gone. And it sounds like the last person who had their little fingers on it was Maureen Comey and the Southern District of New York, because she did. And by the way, they were also refusing to send the files to FBI Maine when they were ordered to.
Do you guys remember when
Kash Patel?
Do you guys remember when Kash Patel was on the Joe Rogan show a couple months ago? A lot of people didn't watch that episode. I did when I was cutting the grass one day. And Rogan flat out asked him, what happened to the files? And he said, they're not there.
Nope.
Everything that we thought was going to be there was not there. Mm-hmm. Somebody sanitized them. Somebody removed them.
And remember, keep in the back of your mind when we start going through all this stuff in this big ecosystem and how all these people are tied and their purposes and all the different little arms of this whole giant web of nastiness, because it's the entire Democrat Party and a few Republicans, but it's the entire Democrat Party. Keep in mind that, remember when Dan Bongino came out and he was like white as a ghost in his interviews, and he said, as bad as you think it is, it's way worse than that. And he looked sick. And then people were talking about how, he was going to be let go from the FBI. All those rumors were going around. Keep that in your mind when we start talking about all of this stuff, because Epstein is tied to some disgusting things. When I tell you that the most palatable thing for the American people to think about is the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was responsible for trafficking 1,000 minor children. That's the most palatable thing that Jeffrey Epstein was involved in. The other things that Jeffrey Epstein were involved in are way worse.
Let's
That's
just give
another
them a
show
hint. That's
for
another
another
show.
day.
Maybe we'll just leave this like little teaser if we ever decide to get into
That's
it.
the teaser. That's what I'm saying. Leave it in your mind.
Well, no, I want to add to it a little bit. Can I add to it a little bit?
You can add to it, and we can tell
Think-
people to read Lisa's article from like a
Yep.
long time ago.
Maybe we should post Lisa's article in here. Think eugenics and transhumanism. There is a reason why very high-powered scientists were showing up at Epstein Island. There's a reason why professors and people involved in the medical fields were regular visitors to Epstein's Island. There's a reason for it. They were going there for a purpose. They were going there to try to figure out what they could do and what they could learn
And
how they
Stephen
could
Hawking,
experiment.
2010, Mind Shift. And also remember all the times that Jeffrey Epstein talked about wanting to have his ranch be a baby ranch, and the people that came out and said that they woke up there with crazy things happening to them, and him being into cryogenics and being as close to the AI people as he was and wanting to use AI and the interfaith stuff. Like, I have chills. That's why I was like not okay when I came on here, because that was right before we went live. Lisa drops this on me and I'm like, oh my God.
Folks, I kind of just dropped playing around I think probably one of the, I don't know how to describe him, Tim Alberino. If you haven't found him on YouTube, go find his series called Birthright. Go watch it. It's long. It's 8 hours. And when you understand the direction that these people are taking us, Jeffrey Epstein makes a lot of sense.
You don't have to do the whole 8 hours. Glenn Beck just interviewed Timothy Alberino last week on his podcast. It's an hour long, and you can get the hour version of that 8 hour Birthright podcast. But you might want to watch the entire 8 hours because it actually is fascinating stuff. But
I tried. I can't. But when you guys, the men might like it, and some of the women, I guess, maybe, but I can't get into it. But when also think about evolutionary leaders, and when you see Data Republican or people posting about evolutionary leaders, you can also think about Epstein and all of the AI people and all of the crazy, nasty. I can't even think about it.
Guys, we are not just haphazardly putting these shows together, okay? We are very intentionally trying to paint a picture of what a global cabal of some of the most disgusting human beings to ever grace the face of the earth, who are living today at the same time, are attempting to do. And it stretches the entire spectrum, from the NGOs, the censorship apparatus, the dignity index, the evolutionary leaders. These guys have an agenda. And I'm here to tell you, you are not part of it. We are not part of it. And they are doing everything they can from A to Z to try to remove our influence from the planet and try to create an entirely new system of living.
And it's
Jeffrey
global.
Epstein was deeply involved in it.
And it's global, and it does have to do with 3-letter agencies, which is why people think, talk about Epstein. And I mean, he did have some stuff to do with some arms deals and stuff, but listen, that's like the least of the bad things that this guy did. But this is global. And I'm also a little bit freaked out about Trump's Truth Social post today about the UN and the peace thing, because peace is one of the things that this whole entire group, including the UN, all of these things, they use peace as a way to push the policies that they want pushed forward. And Trump's all in on peace.
We're going to have to explore this some more. Folks, I think, Nam, did you have anything else to add? I think we need to wrap here.
I do not.
All right, guys, I hope you got something out of this episode. This just paints more of a picture of what it is that we're up against. It's sick stuff. And there's some sick people that are still in power. And our prayer for the Trump administration is that it is time to open the floodgates and let the American people see it all. See the rest of the files, We want to start seeing arrests. We want to start seeing indictments. We want more indictments. We want these grand juries, those to be all over the country, because Stacy Plaskett should not be sitting as the ranking member of anything, given the fact that she owes her entire career to Jeffrey Epstein. Jamie Raskin should not be in Congress after receiving stolen information. Obama's former attorney, his former attorney, seems to have a very close relationship with this guy. And American people need to see it. We need to see it all. It's disgusting. All right, folks, we're out. I hope this was a good one. We'll catch you on Wednesday. See you later.
The bullets and the punches and the riots have been flowing in only one direction for too long.
I've been trying to tell you guys this whole time how corrupt all of these things were, and here we are.
It is not our responsibility to fix something they spent years intentionally trying to destroy. Unity can only happen in a country when you have a people who agree on what the outcome should be.